Welcome to Uxbridge Beat, the podcast where we feature the who's who of Uxbridge, Ontario. My name is Scott Campsell.
And I am Jennifer Neveu-Campsell, and today we are chatting with Trevor Cox. As a former player and now coach and assistant GM, Trevor is well in the know to give us the scoop on all things hockey.
Perhaps you've been a longtime supporter of the Bruins, or maybe you're new to Uxbridge and would like to have more involvement in the community, or are simply a fan of the game itself. This interview is guaranteed to help shed a little more light on an important piece of our town's sports culture.
It's hockey night in Uxbridge, and let's find out what puts the stick-handling beat into Trevor's community-minded hockey heart. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks for the idea.
Well, hey, listen, the Uxbridge Bruins, in my opinion, are a strong core tradition in Uxbridge. And I just thought it was a good opportunity. You guys have an Uxbridge podcast. Let's talk about the Uxbridge Bruins.
I agree. And I was going to reach out, but honestly, I didn't even know who to reach out to. So thank you for doing that, because I thought, do I go to a coach, a player, a GM? Who do I connect with? And apparently you are all those things?
I like to think I am. I'm the assistant coach as well as the assistant GM. So pretty involved in the day-to-day operations.
And how long has that been for you?
This is my 5th season on the bench with the team. This is my first season in the assistant general manager's role, but been around or involved with the Bruins pretty much my entire life.
But did you play for them too?
I did, yes. So I played from 2000 to 2005. And my brother played as well. He played for 2 seasons back in the early 90s. And growing up, I remember Friday nights, the Bruins played at 8:30. And one of the things that I remember more than actually going to the Bruins games was my parents had to tape Dallas. They had to set the VCR to tape Dallas.
Because that was at 9.
That's right. There you go. Mm-hmm. So mom and dad had to set the VCR to tape Dallas before we could go to the Bruins game. And I think Mom had to usually start that at like 7:30 because it took her about 45 minutes to figure out how to set the timer. So, yeah.
Get it to stop flashing 12 long enough.
That's right. Yes.
Oh my gosh, this is like, we went from, wow, you're like present day, GM or assistant GM, assistant coach and everything, to how old are you? Then all of a sudden now we're talking VCRs and I don't know how to set the clock.
Let's lead up to playing for the Bruins. You specifically, or a player in general, what are the steps one takes to get to play for the Bruins?
Well, obviously, you got to start by playing hockey. And that, you know what, doesn't really, people try to tell you that it matters, but it doesn't matter what age you start playing hockey. It really doesn't. Kids mature, kids develop as hockey players at completely different rates. But yeah, you play your minor hockey in North Durham, you play for the North Durham Warriors, or as the way our cycle goes right now, we're pulling a lot of kids out of the South, Ajax, Pickering, Whitby, Oshawa, kids even as far as Scarborough. Typically what happens is after a kid graduates from his minor hockey eligibility, which usually runs out at 17, 18 years old after their major midget year, they're left with a couple choices. They can either go and try and play some junior hockey somewhere, or you go to the beer leagues. And the Uxbridge Bruins and the PJHL is a very good place for kids to come and play that maybe have come to the realization that they're not going to the NHL. They're not going to the OHL. They're not going to NCAA. But they still want to play really good, competitive, high-caliber hockey while they're off at university. They're off at college. We have a couple players, they're doing their apprenticeships, electrician apprenticeships right now, volunteer firefighters. In the last couple of years, we even had a young fellow from Stouffville who was a full-time firefighter and playing hockey for the Bruins. The schedule is a lot lighter than a junior A schedule. That's, like I say, we kind of get the kids that have figured it out. Hey, I'm not going to win a Stanley Cup. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to start my life, but I'm still a kid. I still want to play hockey. So yeah, after you graduate from minor hockey, we typically have development camps. I hate calling them development camps. Actually, we'll have a prospects camp, and we'll send out invitations and we'll put advertisements on social media, whatever, saying, hey, having a prospects camp, such and such a date, click here to register. And kids, if they want to crack at making the lineup, they come to prospects camp, and we get a good look at hockey players there, and we kind of pick the best or pick who we think would fit into our organization. And then we take them to what we call a main camp, which happens typically the end of August, 1st of September. And that's kind of the best kids that we've found. And that's where we make our final cuts to head into the season with a 23-man roster.
Do they find you totally, or do you go and scout?
We do quite a bit of scouting. Our general manager, Jason Simmons, he does a lot of scouting. He travels to a lot of arenas around the province watching young hockey players. But having said that, we have a lot of players just reach out to us too as well, saying, hey, looking for a place to play next year. Would you guys be interested? And of course, it's very rare we turn a kid away that wants to try out for our hockey team.
Do they pay to be on the team, or are they paid?
No, they are not paid. They have to pay to play. It never used to be that way. But with the increasing cost of day-to-day operations for our organization, as well as the league, players can't play for free anymore. It's too much financial burden on our organization. And we don't have a private owner either.
No, you're a non-for-profit.
We are a non-for-profit. So essentially, I like to say we're owned by our sponsors. We go out, it costs approximately $110,000 a season to run our hockey team. So we depend heavily on sponsors. We do not have a private owner. A lot of teams do. We don't. That's how we operate. We've been able to have success that way. And I mean, it's good for the community.
Are there rules on how many players you can have from out of town?
Not anymore. No, what they did was they kind of, a bunch of years ago, and it really started to happen when they removed grade 13, actually. They kept opening up the borders more and more. Because it used to be each team had their area, we'll call it for lack of a better term, that they could draw players from. Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, I think you were allowed 4 imports is what they called. And, for us, a player from York Region was an import. A player from, it's Kawartha Lakes now, but I'll call it the old Victoria County, Lindsay, would have been an import. Now we don't have that rule. There is a rule for 16-year-olds. If we want to sign a 16-year-old from York Region, we are not allowed to do that.
Why is that?
I don't know. I think it has something to do with the growth and development of a 16-year-old. All that time traveling, like if they choose to play for a team that's an hour away as opposed to 20 minutes away, I think the powers that be look at his development, spending a lot of time in a car when he should be maybe going to school or doing homework and things like that. Also with the rule of we're only allowed one 16-year-old every season, and we are not allowed. So we are allowed to carry a 23-player roster, but we're only allowed to dress 20 players per game. Now that's including 2 goalies. So they've also instituted the rule because of development that you cannot have a 16-year-old on your team and make him a healthy scratch.
What do you mean by healthy scratch?
Well, so you can carry 23 players, but you can only dress 20 per game. So that means 3 players every night have to sit out.
Okay.
Sometimes there are no healthy scratches. Sometimes you have suspensions or you have injuries or, a kid has a final exam or something or can't get off work. But if everybody's there and everybody's healthy, 3 players have to sit out. Those are just the rules. So those players that sit out are called healthy scratches. We cannot healthy scratch a 16-year-old because back in the early days, a lot of teams would sign 16-year-olds just so they could basically get them to be their property, quote unquote, and then never play them. And those 16-year-olds wouldn't they wouldn't develop, they wouldn't mature. They'd just kind of be spinning their tires. They're stuck in the mud, right? And that's a bad look on not only a hockey team that's doing that, but to contradict myself a little bit, I had stated that this level of hockey is good for the kids that are going to university or have a full-time job or whatever. But you also do get your 16 or 17 or 18-year-old players that still want to develop and go to the next level of junior A, junior B, university. We had a player a couple of years ago went and played semi-pro in Germany when he was done playing for the Bruins. So there is development still happening. So like I say, it's a bad look on our league as a whole if we aren't producing hockey players into the next level of hockey.
What's the likelihood of having girls on any of these teams?
I've yet to see a girl at this level of hockey. I'm not saying it's not possible.
But there's no specific rule against it, is there?
There's no rule against having females. I haven't seen it. I do believe that someday it might happen. I hope it does. But no, there's no rules holding female hockey players back from playing in our league.
Now, Uxbridge and Port Perry. Talk to us about the rival there.
You said no swearing. I mean, Uxbridge and Port Perry, I always joke that we're like the Yankees and the Red Sox, or the Leafs and the Canadians. I worry that rivalry is going away because our minor hockey systems have amalgamated now to create the Northern Warriors.
I worry that is going away.
I worry, but here's the thing. I'm very nostalgic. I love tradition. And I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with a good, healthy rivalry. Just to keep your edge up. Just to keep you on edge, basically. It goes back, Uxbridge and Port Perry High School hated each other. Their hockey teams hated each other. The baseball teams. Football. Yeah. Baseball teams didn't get along. It's like Springfield and Shelbyville, right? On The Simpsons. It's just, you just live next door to each other. You just hate each other. That's just the way it goes. And it's funny because there's never been a rivalry with Stouffville, but for some odd, unknown reason, we used to have a lot of Stouffville kids come and play for Uxbridge. Now, Stouffville didn't have their own junior team back then, but it's very rare you see an Uxbridge kid go play for Port Perry or vice versa. It's very rare, and it's just, I don't know, it's rooted deep inside of me. I grew up despising Port Perry. I still hate Port Perry to this day. I can't put my finger on it. I think it was just, you know what? My dad's never been a fan of Port Perry either. And maybe it was just bred into me. Taught, I guess. I don't know, but you know what?
Corner Gas. What?
That's Woolerton.
Woolerton, yeah.
Woolerton and Dog River,
yeah. Everybody spits when they say Woolerton. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, it's just one of those things. I can't put my finger on it. It's an old hockey rivalry for me. Listen, there's nothing better than going and putting the boots to Port Perry.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. So obviously with the rivalry comes fighting.
Yes.
Right? Both chirping, from the bench or on the ice or, in the parking lot. What about the actual fight fists on the ice?
You know what? The way the game has gone now,
Did I say fight fists?
Yeah, you
did.
Fight
but that's
okay.
okay.
We're gonna edit that. Fist fights on the ice.
The way the game has gone now, I mean, I've been coaching for 5 years. I can count on one hand the amount of fights we've had with Port Perry. There's a lot of chirping that goes on. A lot of chirping. On the ice, off the ice, on social media, you name it. Everybody's giving it to one another. But as far as fist fights, I haven't seen one I'm sure I've seen one. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but been very few.
Are they allowed? Are you allowed to fight?
You're allowed to fight, but suspensions do come along with it because they're trying to get it out of the game. They're trying to make it a safer league. And that's a big part of it too, is now if you get in a fight on the ice, you could be looking at a potential 3-game suspension right off the top. And with kids now paying to play, they're not getting their money's worth if they're suspended all the time. But I remember back in the 80s and the early 90s, like in Uxbridge Port Perry game, you'd go to a fight and a hockey game would break out. Right? Like it was a bloodbath back in those days, but hockey was a bloodbath back then too. The game's changed, the rivalries changed, it's calmed down a little bit, but don't kid yourself, that hatred still runs deep for me.
What position did you play?
I was a centerman.
Of course you were.
Yeah, I was all over the ice. I was usually in the middle of everything too.
What's the turnout like now for spectators?
You know what? This season, we've had really good crowds. We've been averaging, I would say about 250 to 300 people on any given night. And our home nights, of course, are Friday nights at 7:45. This is a funny subject, actually. So when I started coaching 5 years ago, our crowds weren't really that great. We didn't have very many local kids on the team, which of course always helps. But we also had, the very first year I coached, we also had a very strong team. I remember we put together a streak, like we won like 23 straight games or something like that, and still The people weren't coming out to games. Now we have a few more local players on the team. But what I found was when I started coaching is there's a lot of new Uxbridge residents. I call them migrants or transplants or whatever, but they've come up from Ajax, Pickering, Scarborough, Toronto, wherever, bought their house here, and they move into town. They don't really know that the Uxbridge Bruins exist. And if they know they exist, they don't really know anything about them. And they're not really going out of their way to go to the rink to watch a game on a Friday night. That's fine. That's partly on us too. We need to maybe be out in the community a little bit more to teach people about this. But what you're seeing now, and I know I started noticing this last year, is you're seeing a lot more young kids in the stands, 8, 9, 10 years old. And you look at the kids. So when we come off the ice, the tunnel where we go into our dressing room is just flooded with children. Every game now, they're looking for pucks. They're looking for sticks. They just want to high five the players, whatever. But when you look up above, I see all their parents are people who grew up in town. So they grew up watching the Bruins. They grew up playing for the Bruins. And now they're bringing their kids around. It's like a generational thing. So we're getting a lot more people out now because I think that there's just a generation there that is getting their kids back to come into Bruins because that's what they did when they were kids. Whereas we did go through that phase where we had poor crowds, but I think just a lot of new Uxbridge people who didn't know about the team, and that's fine. That's going to happen, but it's nice to see people flocking back to the arena.
So we just moved into town, let's say, and now it's your turn to sort of sell us on why we should go to games on a Friday night. What are things that you would say or try to do to encourage somebody who's just moved into town to go and check out the Bruins?
Well, first of all, you will not find better entertainment on a Friday night in Uxbridge for $10 or less. You can come and you can watch some really fast, exciting hockey played by kids who still love the game. They're not getting paid. They're not piggybacking off endorsement deals, things like that. They're playing because they still love the game. You can sit right at the glass. If one of our players hits one of their players into the glass and the glass goes like this and the kid's got his nose again, you should see the smiles on their faces. It's a good hometown, exciting event that you can get into. I wish I could do a better job at selling it, but the whole atmosphere, this is Canada, it's winter. Go to an arena on a Friday night. It doesn't matter if it's the Bruins playing, maybe the the U18s are playing, the U16s are playing. These are hometown kids playing for their logo, playing for their town. They're trying to put on a show, and the more people that are in the stands, the better kids play hockey. They get excited for it. Yeah, you come and you watch us play Georgina or Port Perry. Georgina especially, they have a really good crowd following. Their crowd follows them all over the province to watch them play hockey. And you get arguments. I'm not saying it's unsafe, but you get chants going back and forth against one another in the stands. The odd time you get some arguments going on up there, some hometown versus hometown arguments. And listen, like I say, it's the best bang for your buck in Uxbridge as far as entertainment value goes. That's my opinion.
How many teams are in the league?
So in our division, there's 7 teams. Across the whole province, there's 60.
And so does any one team play at any point all 59 other teams?
So we are, with our 7 teams, we are in what they call the OR division in the Eastern Conference. So there are 4 conferences, and I think 2 divisions in each conference. The OR division, which is Uxbridge, Port Perry, Lakefield, Georgina, Clarington, North Kawartha, Little Britain, 7 teams. And then you have the Todd division, which is teams Napanee, Picton. There's a team on the outskirts of Kingston. All across the province, Alliston, Stayner, Essex, Bell River, Petrolia, Grimsby, Glanbrook, Niagara Falls. So what you do is you play within your division, whether it's 7 teams, some divisions have 9 teams, 6 teams. You play within your division all season. If you win your division in the playoffs, then you play the other division within your conference. So the winner of our division will go down and play Napanee or Kingston or Picton or whoever it may be. The winner of that series is the Eastern Conference champion. So when the champion of all 4 conferences are crowned, they actually go to a tournament. And this year, the tournament is in Woodstock. Those teams play off in a tournament style for the Schmalz Cup, which is the league championship for the whole province.
So if I type in or Google NHL standings, I get the whole diagram. I get, these are the people in the Eastern Conference. And so is there a website or something where you can go and sort of see how Bruins are doing compared to other teams?
Yeah, there is. You can, I can't think of the website off the top of my head, but if you say Googled PJHL Hockey Ontario, the standings for the entire province would come up, and you would want to look for the OR division standings. That's the division we play in. And it's right there. I mean, this season we finished second place out of 7 teams. So we kind of exceeded our own expectations. We didn't think we were going to have such a successful season. We did. We're happy about it. And we're in the middle of playoffs right now. And just hoping for the best.
So while you're in the middle of playoffs, obviously you're unbiased coach, but who would be the person that we should be watching? Who are the players where if we go to a Bruins game, these are the guys that would sort of steal the show, so to speak?
All of them.
Okay. Nice. Unbiased coach.
No, nice. we have one player from Scarborough, Quinn Meek, number 5, big strong winger. He actually finished tied 3rd in the province. So out of all 60 teams, he finished tied for 3rd for most goals in the province. I think he finished the season with 33, which as an organization record, I think puts him 2nd or 3rd for most goals in a season for the Uxbridge Bruins. Another player, number 10, Anthony Lamanna. He's a young man from Pickering, and he's a water bug out there. He's everywhere. If there's a scrum or there's some bad stuff going on, he's also always in the middle of it. But he finished the season, I think he had 32 goals, right behind Quinn Meek. And I think he finished with 65 points or something like that. They're a couple of our top guys. On defense, our captain, number 24, Andrew Swan. He's a local Uxbridge kid, born and raised. Just a rock solid, no nonsense kind of defenseman. Does his job very well, makes the other team pay the price in the corners and stuff. Yeah, I mean, we got another young fellow, Josh Chally. We call him Chara because I think he's about 6'6". He's just a tower of power. He's just calm, cool, and collected out there. I mean, he's like you said, I'm trying not to be biased. I mean, every player brings something else to the table. You come to a game and you ask a bunch of kids who their favorite player is. It's very rare you hear the same player twice. So
no, but again,
that's good to see.
You're talking about people from out of town. When they go to a game, it's sort of nice if you can put some kind of name to a player and go, "Oh, well, I heard that on that podcast." So that Meek, that I want to watch him.
Yeah, for sure.
To definitely create some kind of fan loyalty for sure.
Yeah.
From season to season, does a player have to vie for their spot for the next year?
Not typically. If we could carry the same team every year, we might. But I mean, the goal is always to get better. The goal is always to win the Schmalz Cup. We don't want to wallow in mediocrity.
And how many times has Uxbridge won that cup?
Never.
Oh, okay.
We lost in Game 7 one year. Back then, they still did it the traditional way. You just play in best of 7 series until you have a winner. And I was actually on that team. We played Essex, and we lost 2-1 in Game 7 for the Schmalz Cup. So that's the closest the team has ever been. Been to the Final Four 5 or 6 times, I believe. But back to the original question, if from year to year we can find better pieces to the puzzle, sometimes there will be some kids that were on the team the year before let go because we found a better hockey player, plain and simple.
How do you do that? What's that conversation like? The "you're fired" conversation?
I'm not sure. I've never had to do it. I've always kind of had the backroom discussions, but that's typically the job for the general manager. And I'm not the general manager, so I don't have to do that. But I can't imagine it's an easy one. But what I do know is some kids get it. Some kids they get it. They understand. Are they down? Are they disappointed? Absolutely. And they have every right to be. But they're also smart enough that they get it. They say, look, this guy's better than me. In a sense, it's grassroots hockey, but in a sense, it is also small time business too. I mean, if we put a losing team on the ice year after year, we're not going to get any fans. We're not going to get it. The sponsors will start to pull their sponsorships. That's just the way it is. It's never really a question, but it's no different than the NHL. You know, you get your bottom players that are fringe players. We have fringe players on the Bruins too, so.
common question we get at Okamikai Martial Arts and Fitness is, what age can my child start karate?
And the answer is that we have children as young as 3 years old training with us. Austin is one of our amazing students, and he told us some of his favorite things about our program.
Do lots of stuff like karate, like weight falls, kicks, and blocks, and punches. I can do anything.
Austin can do anything, and we are excited to help bring out his potential and your child's too.
We use martial arts as a tool to help your child build confidence, focus, self-discipline, and respect for others.
Contact us at Okamikai Martial Arts and Fitness to get your child started today.
Mom, wake up, it's karate day!
You see the players out in the Santa Claus parade and doing the float and handing out candy and stuff like that. Do they do any other community outreach events?
We used to have them help the Salvation Army at Christmas time at theirs. It's actually a tough thing to do. To be completely honest, we would love to do more of it. We really would. But it's hard when you have so many kids from out of town playing. A lot of our players are in class till 6, 7 o'clock at night, or they're working full-time jobs till 5 or 6 in the evening, and they're from out of town. So when they're already coming to Uxbridge 3 nights a week, one for a game, and we have 2 practices a week, not to mention a Saturday night game in Little Britain or Georgina or Lakefield, to get them to come up here after they've, finished a whole day of class or finished a whole day of work on what we'll call an off day, even if it is for charity or whatever, it's very hard to do because they need their time off too, right? They're just kids. Mm-hmm. They also need time to do kid stuff. They're not getting paid to do this. Having said that, yes, we would like to see a lot more of it, but it's hard with out-of-town kids. We have integrated some of our players into, they go out and practice with the minor hockey teams and help do things like that. If we had more local players, we could do more of that. Right now, as much as we want it to be, it's just not a viable option.
What's been your proudest coaching moment up till now?
Probably the first year I coached, we won what we call the Cougar Cup. So that is when you win the division playoffs to go on and play the other divisions. We call that the Cougar Cup. Probably winning the Cougar Cup is probably my proudest moment. I worked really hard for it as a player. It blew my mind that I had to work twice as hard for it as a coach. Believe it or not, it kind of baffled me.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, as a player, you just go and you just play. You still have to work hard when you're on the ice, when you're playing, but you're just one part of the puzzle. You're one of the gears. When you're on the bench and you're coaching, you're in charge of all those pieces, and you have to put them all together or make all those gears work in the same direction at the same speed to get the ultimate result.
He's the conductor. I get it.
There you go. Yes.
You're not just one member. You're not just one singer in a choir. You're the conductor.
Yes. And actually, that's a great analogy. I've heard that used before, and I wish I'd have thought of that. It's a lot more taxing on the mind as a coach. I know there's some games, I get home and I'm exhausted. I feel like I physically played the game because you have just so much going on in your head. And you have so many people to manage and get everybody pulling in the same direction. It's hard to coach.
What makes you good as a coach? What are your best attributes?
Well, who lied to you and said I was a good coach?
Well, it kept you on for 5 years as a coach.
That's fair enough.
They didn't have that backdoor conversation with you yet.
Fair enough, yes. My strengths, I feel, have always kind of been my bench management, just the way I manage the team in certain situations. Manage players' ice times and things like that. My intensity level. We had the general manager before Jay said that he enjoyed watching me coach because even though I'm standing on the bench, he said, you still play every shift. I'm up and I pace, I'm jumping up and down, I'm, yelling orders out at the players and things like that. My intensity level, my energy level, and I think my understanding of what type of player you get at this caliber. You get some coaches that don't quite understand that this is junior hockey, but it's low-level junior hockey. It's like I said, kids have jobs. They go to school. Kids don't want to be at work all day getting yelled at by their boss, come to practice and get yelled at by the coach. They'll just check out. I've always found that I have a really good understanding of how the players want to be treated at this level. They just wanted to be treated like young men. They want to be treated like adults. They want a little bit of freedom. They also need some discipline and direction. And it's a very fine line. And I've always said that I've straddled it between being their coach and being their friend. And I've always kind of said myself that I straddle that line. Do I sway one way or the other too much sometimes? Absolutely. But for the majority, I straddle that line, and I think that's one of my strengths as well.
And what's the coaching moment where you wish you could have taken back?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I'm not, to be quite honest, as arrogant as this sounds, I don't think there has been one yet.
Good for you.
Everybody has 1 or 10. Off the top of my head, I can't think of one at the moment, but I'm sure I'll see one or more before my coaching career is over.
What improvements do you want to see in the team for next year? You were talking about bringing in players that would make the team better. So where do you see the weak spots?
We had a really good season, but we struggled with consistency. For some reason, and nobody knows why, when we came back from the Christmas break, we were a very Jekyll and Hyde hockey team. And as coaches, we didn't know what, you go to the rink every night, and we didn't know what we were going to get out of these players. So if we're going to have success, we need to work on our consistency. Going forward for the next couple seasons, I would like to see some more local players on the team. Going back to this being, and I hate to use this term, but it's the truth, low-level junior hockey. There's a lot of local players in Uxbridge that look down their nose at our organization. They used to call this Junior C. And if you look at what you got Junior A, you got Junior B, and then you got Junior C. So Junior C is the bottom of the pile. There's a lot of really good young hockey players in Uxbridge that look down their noses at the Uxbridge Bruins organization because they think they're quote unquote too good to play for us. They want to play Junior A or they want to play Junior B, which is fine. Go and play those leagues if you're capable of it. But if you're not capable of playing there, this is a really good place to play hockey. And what I also find is a lot of players, while they look down their nose, they won't come out and skate with us. They won't practice with us. They won't even come watch a game. And what I have found is if you can get 1 or 2 guys to come and practice or even come and watch a game, all of a sudden they're like, whoa, this is a lot better hockey than I thought it was. Maybe I should give this a go. So I would like to see more local flavor on the team. That's, the kids have to want to come and play. So that's up to us to put a really competitive team on the ice. It's us to our organization be really strong. It's up to us for people to know about us in the community.
Do you have a strategy in place where you can say, okay, this is what we're going to work on to get more local kids? Or is it just basically, I wish we could get more local kids?
We always have a strategy. Like we're, Jason Simmons, our general manager, he took over the senior boys high school team last season. So he's got that connection there now too, right? He's working with some more of the youth hockey players in town. I'm very connected with minor hockey as well. We're always talking to people. Hey, how's Timmy doing? How's Johnny doing? Have you get out to a game? Here's some free tickets. Get out to a game. Take it all in, soak it up. See what we're offering. See what we've got. But just like anything else, things change. We could have a conversation with a young man in April and he could say, I'm done minor hockey. I want to come and play for you guys. But then all of a sudden gets into Fanshawe College or something, right? So decides to go away to school instead of staying home and playing hockey. Hey, we're not going to knock a kid for picking school over hockey. But as much as we have strategies, it seems like we're changing them all the time just because it's just the way the world works, right?
What's your personal timeline with these guys? Are you a lifer?
Oh, I'm like an old piece of furniture. I love it. I don't know how much longer I'll stay coaching for, but I do foresee myself always involved in the organization, whether it's on the executive. Maybe I move up into the general manager's role someday. I don't know. We haven't had that conversation yet, but it's like I said, I've been coming to Uxbridge Bruins games since I was born in 1983. I can remember being at games in about 1988. So I've been going to the rink on Friday nights since 1988. Not every Friday night, but close to it. I love it. It's like I said, it's something about Uxbridge and the Uxbridge Bruins. There's nostalgia there for me. There's tradition. Corey Stemp, our water boy, I call him the water boy, but he's been with the team since 1986. And I'll bet you could count on one hand the amount of games he's missed as our stick boy, water boy, chief door opener. You name it, Stumper's done it. And I don't know if I'll have the longevity of that fellow, but I sure would kind of like to try if they'll let me stick around.
Rapid fire?
Okay.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Winter or summer?
Summer.
Best restaurant in town?
Wait. The hockey coach just said summer.
Yeah, it's
But he
weird,
doesn't
right?
have- He's a farmer though too, right?
Yeah, it's
right.
weird,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Favorite restaurant in town? Probably Urban Pantry.
And best burger in town?
Oh, come on now. Best burger in town. You know what? This is really going to surprise you. Boston Pizza has a really good burger.
Really?
Yeah.
But the pizza burger or a
No,
burger?
the pizza burgers are pretty deadly too. But just their regular burger is surprisingly very good.
Now the Texas burger is no longer.
Hey, if Texas Burger was around, it's Texas Burger across the board.
It's an Urban Pantry.
Yeah, but it's different.
Same
It's
thing.
different.
Yeah.
It's different.
Beatles or Rolling Stones?
Rolling Stones.
Maybe this isn't a rapid fire, but in a general community sense, what do you want for Uxbridge?
Oh, how much time have you got? I just listen, I want Uxbridge to grow and develop with the rest of the world, but I want to find a way to keep that hometown, again, the nostalgia, the tradition. I want to find a way to hold on to our heritage, I guess, is the best way I can put it. I don't want to get too big as a town and a community that we all forget where we came from.
Your favorite NHL player of all time?
Wendell Clark.
Why?
He just played the game the right way. He could go out and score 30 goals a season, or he could go out and punch your eyes shut if he felt like it. Just a rugged Saskatchewan farm boy that any way you wanted to play the game, he could play it.
And who is the most overpaid, useless player in the league right now?
Willie Nylander.
Favorite team?
Boston Bruins.
Least favorite?
Toronto Maple Leafs. Which is odd because my favorite player ever was a Leaf.
Clark. Yeah.
But I hate the Leaf. You know what? It's not even the Leafs. I hate Leaf fans. I hate how delusional Leafs fans can be. And it drives me nuts.
Maybe it's not delusional. Maybe it's just hopeful. Optimistic.
Well,
Delusional.
it's delusional. Yeah.
If you could spend time with any hockey coach and just pick their brain and try to get some tips and advice, who would it be?
I would love to sit down with the late, great Pat Burns, who oddly enough was a Leaf coach too at maybe their best time ever. But he had a real no nonsense approach to the game, and his teams played what I like to call lunch pail hockey. You know, they blue collar hockey, lunch pails and work boots, whatever it took to get the job done. And he would get the whole team to buy into his direction. And yeah, if I could, I'd have to say Pat Burns. Would have loved to sit down and it'd probably be a couple Molson Canadians with him and just pick his brain on stuff.
So when you pass away and you go to heaven and you get to hockey heaven, who do you want to play with?
Well, I think those gates are closed for me, but
Well, hockey heaven is
hockey
a separate
heaven,
place.
hockey heaven is a separate place. Yeah, he's one of the first.
And who else is on your team?
To go and see when I get to hockey
No, you
heaven,
get to
or
play
just-
with them.
Oh, I get to play with them.
You get to play with these guys.
So you want me to assemble,
your team.
build my team
Build your
here?
team.
Yeah.
Wow, this is cool. This is a cool question. Okay, so I'm going to take Carey Price in net. I'm going to take Chris Pronger and Ray Bourque on defense. I'm going to take Wendell Clark. I'm going to take Joe Sakic. And the other right winger, I mean, how do you not go with Gordie Howe?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'd take Gordie Howe. And yeah, Pat Burns is gonna coach.
What do you think is the best technological advancement that hockey has had in terms of gear?
Helmets. As far as elbow pads, shin pads, your hockey pants. I mean, you can only design it so far. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Until you look like a medieval knight out there. But helmets. When you look at the very first helmets that came out. Even you look at the helmet that I wore in the early 2000s to the helmets that players are wearing now, the advancements in protection are huge. And it's obviously with all the education and the science that's come out on concussions. I mean, it's a no-brainer that had to be the fastest evolving technology in the game. So I'm going to go with helmets for sure.
So last question for you, for heaven. So you die, you go to heaven. What does God say to you as a coach?
Or just as an individual?
No, I want to know as a coach.
Okay.
As a coach, he has said, you did this really well. Way to go.
I think he's going to tell me that I connected with my players really well on not only a hockey level, but a personal level too.
And what about away from the rink? What is God going to say to you?
He's just going to shake his head. I don't think there's a lot of words there. He's going to have a smart aleck grin, and he's just going to shake his head at me.
How did you get in here?
Yeah, exactly.
He went through the back door.
Yeah.
You came in through the GM door.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He doesn't know about the ticket prices because he was through the back.
That's right. Thanks for having the conversation with us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I'm excited to get to a game now.
Yeah, our problem is like we're always like doing work or something on Friday nights, like I'm teaching or whatever. So that's why it was so easy for me to ask some of the questions, like who should I be watching? And why should I go? Obviously, I've lived here all my life, so I know why I should go.
The only the only reason we can't go is because our daughter likes to go, because that's what teenage girls do, to go see the teenage boys.
Yes.
And that's so embarrassing that we go
to have mom and dad there.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
I get it. Yeah.
No, now I'm thinking we should be going more often.
Okay.
But no, thank you very much for this. Like I said, like the Uxbridge Bruins have been around since 1976. So back to the whole heritage and nostalgia and tradition thing, it's something that I really want to see stick around moving forward as a town. And any way we can get our name and our story out there is great. So thanks so much for having me. That was
pleasure.
awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This is one of those times, and we've had a few of them, where we're doing this podcast and it's just the amount of time that it takes to edit and put everything together and then throw it out there. And so when we talked to Trevor, it was a couple weeks ago, and I think Bruins had just started playoffs. And so now here we are. They just won their series against Little Britain, and now they're on their way to going for the Cougar Cup against Clarington.
Yeah, and so we missed a few games in there, and we could have launched a little sooner and, pushed a little harder for their, that element of their playoffs. But hey,
No, let's ride the coattails. That's totally us. Oh no, we had planned this all along.
No. So
Go Bruins.
Go Bruins. So they're that much further along. So now where do we stand? So they're coming up this Thursday. We're at the beginning of April versus Clarington. And so now as a town, what do we do? How do we go support these guys? We go watch the games.
Yeah, and it's funny. I've got mixed emotions because every once in a while I'll see something come up going, hey, you can't get to the game, go watch the YouTube channel.
No, because Trevor made it very clear that they play better with live audience. So unless it's a desperate situation and you have to watch it on YouTube, go buy the tickets, go and get the concessions, get into the stands and cheer for our team. They need it.
You know what stinks is we were talking off air about how when I was younger, I'd go to the hockey games and stuff. And I don't think I've all the times I went, not once did I win the 50-50 draw. Not one.
Is there always a 50-50 draw like every game?
50-50 draw.
Okay, well, that's another
There's a puck drop. There's this isn't just about the game.
Who knew?
What can we accomplish for us? That's what's important.
Okay, so the Uxbridge Bruins have all sorts of awesomeness coming up. Go out and support your local hockey team. Scott and I are going to get out there. We're going to watch some games. We're going to cheer really loud. I'm a super loud cheerer. We all know this. And whether it's just community-minded spirit or whether you love the game of hockey or maybe you're new to Uxbridge and you just want to figure out how do I fit in this community, go and cheer on your local hockey team.
Let's put it this way. The Uxbridge Bruins made it past the first round of the playoffs. When was the last time we said that about the Leafs? Let's just throw that out there.
So go Bruins!
Yeah, we've got a winning hockey team.
Yes! Look at us go.
This has been a Capsule Broadcasting production. We Googled it. 2004. The Leafs haven't made it past the first round since 2004. It's time to support local.